Now let's compare that to the Hook and the Samoa Joe.
Let's, just before you talk about the match, I also watched the beginning of Dynamite. I watched as much as I could before we recorded today. And they actually did a good job
As
at the
much
beginning
as
of the...
wait a minute, as much as you could. I mean, it was like it was a chore for you to watch
No,
it.
it wasn't as much as I could tolerate. It was as much as the time would allow me. But
Okay,
I
okay.
watched the first 10 minutes, and the show did a very good job of hyping up the match for the main event.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I watched the first half of Christian Cage and Dustin Rhodes. And do you know what? The commentators also did a really good job of... It was almost like an audition episode where they were saying exactly the motivations of Christian and Luchasaurus, who's now Killswitch, and Nick Wayne. And it's almost like they were directing it to first-time viewers, which they should be doing.
They should be doing it. Every time the announcer should have it in their head that if you're not familiar with this and kind of go over it, the older fans know it. Younger fans don't. I mean, you don't have to go into detail and bore people with it, but kind of say it's like their first episode. And that is an improvement because they used to talk to you just like, well, if you don't know, we're not telling you.
Mm. Yeah,
which is a bad attitude.
Yeah, if I didn't know what was going on, I think I would have been relatively caught up, like within the first 2 minutes of the match, which is actually very, very good. Now, having said that, I know you watched all of Samoa Joe versus Hook, and you have a lot to say about it, so go ahead.
Well, I saw Hook come down the ramp. And he's a good-looking kid, kind of thin, but he's getting there. But he didn't really play to the crowd at all. He's like in his own world. And I think that's kind of his gimmick. He can get by with that. And then he got in the ring and he's going up for this title. And he didn't look nervous or act nervous or anything or apprehensive. And he turns his back. He turns his back always to his opponent, which I thought was a bad signal because I think out of respect, he should have stood there and going back and forth a little bit like he is worried about Joe. This is the most important time of his career up to now. And if you're not nervous, something's wrong with you. But I think he should have faced the corner. And it's a little thing, I know that. But I think people are used to him just turning his back and he looks back over his shoulder, at his opponents in the other one. But I think in this one, he should have stayed straight ahead because I think he's looking for every type of advantage that he can muster. Now, Joe comes out. Joe looks like he's been there before, and he has. And I think the general consensus of every fan in there is that Joe is going to win. How, they don't know. So the match starts, and it starts with little Hook tearing into Samoa Joe. And that worked for a while. And then when Samoa Joe cut him off, it became obvious to me. Let me go back to when they were walking the ring. Hook came into the ring with, some chairs and a little bit. But when Joe came in, he had a lot more positive reaction than he did negative reaction, which told me, well, this is going to be kind of a different type match. Because I think the crowd liked Joe more than they liked Hook. And the match, once they started having the match, that Hook, he took some fantastic bumps. I mean, that Joe beat the living crap out of him, put him through a table, did this. They did one bump over the top rope or through the ropes or something and looked like it killed him. And then it ended up, and it didn't go that long. No wonder it could have been ad-free. It only went about 10 minutes, didn't it? Total?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah, so no wonder it was ad-free. And you got to say, well, Tony had the right idea that he can say we're not going to show any ads doing this. Well, it's only 10 minutes. It's probably wasn't going to show any anyway. And then he gets him in the Cobra clutch and chokes him out. And the only thing I would have done differently is when he choked him out and then they raised Joe's hand. And I think Joe should have looked at him like, you little punk. Go at him again, start choking him again. The referee can't get him off. I think Taz, he got up one time. I think Taz said, I can't do this. Which is natural for a father to run in or to interfere in an activity that his son could get hurt in. Then all he's got to do is go in there and say, hey, Joe, and push him back. That's my son, Hey, lighten up. And then start checking on his son, and Joe stands back. And then he puts it the same thing on Taz. Both of them are laying down. Now he's beating the hell out of both of them and then sends you Page Kid. And if you want to have some blows between them, you can do that. But it ends up now he's killed two people. And I think that helps Hook, and it helps Joe, and it helps Page. So now I would have next week, I would have little Hook. He's not there. And I would have him taken out on a gurney too, by the way. I mean, if you're going to do it, do it. And, Taz is not too, I mean, Taz, I don't think you can take him out on a gurney. You can't get two out there, but one's enough. And I think that leaves, and that's really, really good for out clips, for your social media, for your video packages when you bring them back. That's a really, really good look. And Joe said he's going to do it. And it was a great opportunity for Hook. Then you can leave them off 2 or 3 weeks. Then all of a sudden they spring back into action. Now Hook comes back. And Taz said, hey, he's going to have to learn the killer instinct, or he's not going to make it in this business. And little Hook did a pretty good interview. It's a believable interview on the streets of the bad streets.
USA.
Of Charleston, South Carolina. That's the bad streets. And it was raining, and he had a good look, and it wasn't a bad interview. So, and I can't knock it. I think a few things in there could have been improved. The match was good. Joe is really, really good in that ring because he doesn't have to do that much because he's a power wrestler. And he's never had a good body. You look at him, you say, little fat bastard. But he's tough. And I don't think anybody doubts, because I don't think you got many people in that crowd that I could beat him. They're not saying that. They have respect for him. And so anyway, I would on the scale from 1 to 10, I'll give it an 8, a 7. Let me give it a 7, a strong 7. And it was good. And that was all due to Joe.
Now, you mentioned I think this needs harping on a tiny bit more. When Samoa Joe gave Hook that slam through the table, and Hook seemed to take it entirely on the back of his neck. Even I went, that could not have felt good.
And your point is?
I just wanted to see your face when I said it.
It was actually, what's that called? It has a name.
Well, it used to be a Sambo suplex, from the Russian Sambo martial art, I guess, like a head and arm thing, and then a turn. It used to be that. I don't know what it's called now.
It was a vicious looking move, and he took it, and I think the announcers, you brought them up a little earlier. I think they handled this show well. I think they handled it. It was Taz and who on commentary?
There may have been 3. Taz and the, I always forget his name, the masked guy. What's he called?
Yeah, I don't know what he's called.
And the third guy, I don't know.
Yeah.
So Taz and 2 other people.
Well, I don't like it when they have the 3-man booths. You know, they have had 5-man booths, which is way, way too much. But yeah, I don't really know the mask guy's name right off the bat, but I think they did a pretty good job. But see, a lot of times, this is what I hate. A match is going on and they're talking constantly, like Raw and SmackDown do. It's just constant. Slow down, guys. Slow down and let what the guy has done, like that bump through the table. I mean, they had to put that over. But, you know, they don't need to say, oh, wow, what a bump. And hell, down at Joe's auto barn, you can get. But all in all, they did a good job. I think this is one of their better shows. So maybe Tony is listening a little bit.
He's called Excalibur, by the way. I just couldn't think of his name.
Excalibur.
Yeah. There's one thing that I want to...
So where's he from? I've never met him.
Parts unknown. He's called Mark Letzman in real life. And
Mark Letzman, that's him?
Yeah, he's from Detroit.
I don't know him.
That's the spirit. There's one thing, and this isn't Samoa Joe or Hook. This is a conceptual thing that is happening with wrestling now, and I think it's outdated.
Yeah,
is the 3-arm drop kind of thing, because we've had 30 years plus now of mainstream mixed martial arts, and here's what happens if you are choked out, and it does happen. If you're choked out before you can tap, the referee wiggles your arm for a second, realizes that you're unconscious, and stops the match. Mm-hmm. But for that match, it was really clear that Hook was dead, but the referee let him in the choke for another 10 seconds while he wiggled the arm. And for me, I don't know if that's a bit outdated for these days. What do you think?
I don't think so.
No?
Because we're doing the 3-arm drop for a reaction. You know, and he'd caught it on 3. Now he's coming back. That's why we do that. I don't think you can really even put MMA or UFC, that style, into that, because if it drops 3 times, you're done. That's our rule. That's wrestling's rule. It's been that way forever. Now, it may be in mixed martial arts, you drop it 1 time, the guy's done. We can do that. But they do that because the guy's really getting choked out. If you don't break it soon, he may have brain damage, or Dane damage is what I call it. But I think that still works. I really do. So, but now that he's out, now if they did that part that I suggested, which it was okay the way it was done. I'm just saying, I think this may have added a little more to it with a little more background. So Joe has places to go and people to go with. He's going to go with Paige sometime anyway. So we'll see.